Hi, I'm Elaine Boddy and welcome to my Podbite, sister podcast of the Foodbod Pod. Today we are back in my kitchen and I thought I would chat to you whilst I just prepare some dough. I have got in front of me 3 bowls of dough. Here's the first one. And with these, I'm just trying something different to prove the point that you can use different flours for different things. So with this dough, I have used my master recipe with Matthew's Cotswold flour, pizza flour. So we know that the pizza flour makes fabulous, fabulous pizzas. But in this recipe, for this loaf, I'm actually using it to make one of my standard sourdough loaves. So I've got in front of me a bowl of my standard way of making sourdough, but with using the pizza flour. I started making it yesterday evening as per my standard way of proving dough. It's nicely risen. That's the banneton. I'm just sprinkling an extra bit of rice flour into my banneton to ensure that the dough doesn't stick. And I'm just going to pull this dough into a nice tight ball. And this flour is it creates a very bouncy dough. So the flour has got dough improver in it, which is to assist with making pizzas. And there's more coming up about that in an episode coming soon. And the purpose being to help you to be able to stretch and manipulate the dough for your pizza bases. So when you're using it like this to make a loaf, it's very bouncy, very bouncy dough, and makes a very smooth dough. So in this dough, I have reduced the water slightly. I made one during the week with a full amount of water, and it worked well, but I felt it might just be a bit loose and bouncy for people to manage. So this one has got 50 grams of starter, 325 grams of water, 500 grams of flour, and salt to taste. So that's that dough. Now in a banneton, it's got its shower cap back over the top, and it's going in the fridge to sleep. So why does it go in the fridge? The aim of putting the dough in the fridge is, once it's in its banneton, is to partly help it bring on the shape. So the fridge temperature will take the dough down from room temperature and make it a much slower part of proving now. So it's often called the second proof, but it's a much slower one because it's in the fridge. So the cold is slowing it down, which at the same time then helps the dough to take on the shape from the banneton, so that when we turn it out, it's easier to score, it holds its shape. But also, whilst it's in the fridge is where you then generate more flavour. So whilst it stays in the fridge, it's building flavour because it's still fermenting. It's just doing it a lot more slowly. So the time in the fridge is beneficial for various reasons. And I always say a minimum of 3 hours, because it does take a while for the dough to cool down from room temperature to then take on the fridge temperature. You could turn the dough out now and score it, but it would be very loose. It'd be very difficult to score because you wouldn't have that smooth, firmer surface. But you can do it. This is sourdough. There's no single way. There's no one fixed way of doing things. But my way is to put it in the fridge for at least 3 hours. The question of how long, which I'm often asked, is there is no fixed answer, because it all depends on the temperature in your fridge, the strength of your dough. Possibly you could leave it in there for a day, 2 days, 3 days. All depends on the temperature in your fridge, how often it's opened and closed, how strong your dough was when you first put it in there. So for me, I would do a minimum of 3 hours, probably up to 24 if you really want to. If you want to leave it for longer, just go back to the tips that I've shared before and use less starter. Give your dough less power, and therefore there's less risk of it overproving. So the other 2 doughs that I've got, I want to turn them into sandwich loaves. So for these, I've got Pullman pans. So Pullman pans are lovely rectangular loaf pans. They come with a lid. On this occasion, we don't need the lid for what we're going to do. So the lid is used when, it's taken the lid off. The lid is used when you want to create a square loaf. That's what a Pullman loaf is. But you don't have to use it, bake them with the lid on. And very often I don't use the lids, but I do use these pans because I think that they create a really nice shape. They're very tall and they produce a nicer shape for me than a standard 2-pound loaf tin. One thing I do find with them, they come with a supposed non-stick coating on them. But even if you oil them, whatever you do with them, I find that the coating starts to come off, or it starts to get quite grubby. So I often line my pans. So that is the sound of me getting out some parchment paper. And this is good quality parchment paper, not baking paper, not greaseproof paper or wax paper. If you use them, they will stick to your loaf. They will adhere to it forever and a day and you'll not get it off. It needs to be good quality parchment paper. So I've cut off a rectangle in front of me and I'm going to line my pan. Now you can see a full video of this. I've got one on YouTube, I've got one on Instagram. I'm going to try and talk you through it whilst I do it here. So I've got my loaf pan. I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to put the paper over the top. And what I want to do is fold the paper over the pan lengthways. So I've got the pan in front of me lengthways. I've got the paper over the top, again lengthways, and I'm folding it evenly over the top so that the two edges meet at the other sides. So the parchment paper actually is ideal. It's 300 millimeters wide, so 30 centimeters, and it's a perfect width to be able to wrap over the top of the pan so that it goes from one edge right over the top to the other. So I've got the paper lengthways across the pan, and all I'm going to do is push the paper down against the corners. So I want the indents from the pan in the paper. Then I'm going to take the paper off, move the pan away, and then cut up to the indents that I've made. So you're basically going to cut off 4 squares from each corner, because they're the bits we don't need. So we're going to end up with a rectangle in the middle with pieces coming off the sides and the top and bottom. So we've got almost like a big elongated plus sign. And then I'm just going to fold them in. So the long piece, we're just going to fold it across. That was the bottom long piece, and the top long piece do the same. So you're going to end up basically with like a parcel of parchment paper, folding in the corners as well. So I've got in front of me a rectangle of parchment paper that will sit inside the loaf pan with the edges that can then be folded up to go up the sides of the pan. Now that might seem like a faff, although it's not really taken me long to do. But the beauty of using good quality parchment paper is that you can use it time and again. So once you've baked your loaf, you can gently peel it off and use it quite a few times before you need to do it again. So what I'm going to do now is put that paper on the counter alongside me. I've opened it flat. I've got the dough next to me, and I'm going to pull this dough. This is very bouncy. So for the sandwich loaves, I have used my full amount of water. So we've got 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of water, 500 grams of the pizza flour, the salt to taste. It's very, very bouncy. for ease, I'm just pulling that into a big ball, a very, very bouncy ball. When I've got it into some semblance of ball that I can pick up, which it just about is here, and pick it up, turn it over in my hand, and I want the smooth side up at me and the hand side down on the paper. So I'm just going to place it on the paper. It's going to start to splurge, but that's fine because this is what the pan's going to do. Then use the paper to lift it up and place it in the pan. So you can see me do this on lots of videos. If you want links to these things, I can send them out, let me know. Or you can read the written instruction. So yes, I pulled that into a ball because it's so bouncy. But what will happen now is, again, I'm going to cover it with the shower cap and put it in the fridge and leave it to prove again. Now, I've got various sandwich loaf recipes, and some of them say proving it on the counter. Others give the option of the counter or the fridge. You can do either. If you ever find, or if you're constantly having sandwich loaves that end up with a bubbly surface, it's because they're proving too quickly and unevenly on your counter. So do it in the fridge. Honestly, it works really well. You get a nice even surface. Yes, it will take longer to prove, but it will happen. And I think it really helps to get a nice even shape and an even surface. So that's that one going into the fridge. So before anyone asks, my fridge is at about 4 degrees centigrade. So I'm going to just do the other one and prep the tin and line it whilst I keep talking. So coming up in our next couple of episodes, they're really brilliant next couple of episodes. In August, we're all about pizzas. Oh, all about pizzas. We've got Scott coming back, Scott Dealey, who was on our podcast last year. Very, very popular. He came to my kitchen and my home last weekend. We were lucky with the English weather. We were out in the garden and he gave me a full lesson in pizza dough shaping and making and cooking in his uni pizza oven, which was very, very much fun. So that's coming up in August, and you'll find on my social media lots and lots of pizza focused stuff. Before that, in July, we're going nuts. It's all about nuts. So at the end of last week, before Scott was here, I was joined inside my kitchen by Stu McDonald, who is the owner and creator of my most favourite peanut butter, Manor Life. I love this stuff. I love it, love it, love it. So historically, I've always tried whatever nut butters I've seen come up on the market because I'm such a fan. I tried these very early on when I first saw them and have been in love ever since. So for me to have Stuart here, just absolute honour, dream come true. He's absolutely brilliant, and you're going to be able to hear him as we talk through how he created the business, why he created the business, but also as we do some cooking. We're playing with dough, we're making a vegetable chili, and everything, of course, with peanut butter in. So for me, it's all about the crunchy. I do love crunchy peanut butter, and their crunchy is very crunchy. But I like to use it in lots of things, which is why we'll be showing you, yes, how I've used it in bread. There's 2 different kinds of bread coming up, but also in chili. But I will also put it in curry. I put it in lots of things that I make. So if I'm making a vegetable dish of some sort that's got a sauce, I will often add the peanut butter. What you can hear is me sorting out this second dough to go in the other loaf pan. I will often add peanut butter because it makes a really good thickener, and it adds an extra flavour profile, it adds extra protein. So do get ready for the next episode. It's coming out on the 19th of July, And it is lots and lots of fun. Stew was just brilliant fun. We had great fun in my kitchen. Lots of fabulous food. David got to indulge in that one. But also, let me get a big shout out to my very own producer, the one and only David Treadway. So the last episode we put out was me cooking in my kitchen. So you could hear me making my kind of food. So there was a dish with grains and roasted vegetables and a bean and tomato and garlic dish. The things that I love to make in my kitchen. And you can hear it still available online, the episode. I was showing how I cook my grains, the versatility of frozen vegetables, and just some different ideas and things to do. And David cooked the recipes, fed them to his daughter and her friend and family, and loved it. I'm so proud and so chuffed. So thank you, David. Thank you for making my recipes. Thank you for sharing them with your family. Thank you for making a smash job of them, which is what it sounds like you did. Absolutely brilliant. And along those same lines, right, that dough is going in the fridge. That was really bouncy, really, really bouncy. Along the same lines then, let me just tell you something I cooked yesterday you might find useful. I did the same again as I'd done previously. So I had some baby plum tomatoes. I had a couple of packs of those, so there was about 600 grams of them. And I put them in a pan with some olive oil and just slowly cooked them down until they started to break down. I then added my favourite trio of roasted cumin, smoked paprika, some Aleppo chili flakes to add some flavour. And then I kind of created a lumpy sauce, which I then stirred in some roasted aubergine flesh. So I had 4 medium-sized aubergines. I pricked them, put them in the air fryer, kept turning them until they really collapsed, and scraped out the flesh. And I put the flesh of 2 of them in the pan with the tomato mix. It was very, very tasty. And that had all been cooked in olive oil. And with the other 2 aubergines, I scraped out all the flesh and I made mutabal. So depending what part of the Middle East or Mediterranean you come from, you either call it baba ganoush or mutabal, depending what goes in it. To me, where I was brought up, it was mutabal. So it's the aubergine flesh mixed with tahini, lemon juice, garlic, and I added some yogurt, as some people do, to make it really creamy. I have to say, the 2 together on a slice of your very own sourdough, very tasty. What you'll notice is how quickly that's all done. I had 3 doughs, they're now all in the fridge. 2 are in the loaf pans, lined and done, the other one in the banneton. So these things don't need to take time at all. And of course, there's no mess. There's not a single bit of mess on my counter because I shaped them all in the bowl. Thank you for listening to my Podbite. I'm Elaine Boddy. Get ready, tune in to the next episodes of the Foodbod Pod, and please let us know what you think. Happy baking, cooking and eating.